People.
Love it.
Wait, is it?
Go to the restroom.
It's like cool. It's nice.
Yeah.
But as soon as she turned off the air.
Jimmy here?
No.
We gotta give 1 minute for Jimmy. Okay. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone and call to order the regular scheduled public meeting for the Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. The Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session on June 10th, 2025, and prior to tonight's meeting to discuss matters of real estate related to the Public Works Facility, potential litigation related to pensions, zoning, code enforcement, and emergency services. I want to give an announcement to make sure that everybody is aware. The next concert at Penn Ambler Park is scheduled for Wednesday, tomorrow, June 25th, featuring Kate Mills. The Taqueria dos Hermanos food truck will open at 6:30. Please check the township website for any additional information. I'm going to open up with a presentation by John Farrell. And it's going to be a public discussion about the township's draft sidewalk and trails plan. Turn it over to John. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. So after the last Board of Supervisors meeting where we discussed the sidewalk and trails plan, the board asked to put the plan on the website and get some public feedback. We did. We posted it twice, did social media twice, and we got, I'd say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 different responses for it of varying lengths, some very short, some rather long. So I'm going to summarize what came in and the responses that the staff has. So basically, all these comments came in, and then the team with Sandy, our recreation director, and Jim and Chad, our township engineer and traffic engineer, we looked at it all and kind of said, this is the stuff we can do. Some of it needs more research, and some of it we had kind of ruled out as being a little too difficult or unreasonable for some reason. I wanted to hit just a couple of quick notes about the process because there were several consistent process questions that came up. One, I just kind of want to highlight for everybody that this is a high-level study. It's a strategic plan. It's not something to be implemented in like the next year or anything like that. The idea is that it's guidance for the board and for the planning commission. When someone comes in with like a land development application and says, I'd like a waiver from sidewalks, the idea is that when somebody is on a priority route, it is no, we really need those sidewalks there. Those are the kind of situations. It's not a, hey, this year township's going to go out and start building sidewalks that quickly. It's where to direct those kinds of things as they come in. It's also not a full engineering study. This is not even quite, I'd say, a feasibility. It's still strategic. So there were some questions about, well, what side of the road would this be on? Would it be on both sides or just one? Those kinds of questions we're not trying to answer this plan. It's just to say, in an ideal situation, where would we connect walking paths through the township, be they trails or sidewalks? Let's see. We also, we're not determining any specific order of any construction priorities. We're saying that these are priority routes, not one is more priority over the other. Again, so we can kind of guide those decisions. And if a grant application came up that fit one, we could use it to direct that as well. We also had several questions about cycling lanes. This is pedestrians only. We're not dealing with cycling lanes for this one. So that could be another separate study that would have different criteria that we would be looking at. Okay, on to the feedback. I'm going to summarize these by area as best I can. We had several and I apologize, I'm going to be reading this so I don't miss anybody on this because there is quite a few things here. So we had several folks ask to consider a route that would connect the residents near Cedar Hill Road to the Springhouse Village Shopping Center. We did have a priority route on Cedar Hill going to Welsh, but not on the other side. That was primarily the limiting factor there was the bridge over 309 doesn't have pedestrian access and was replaced in the last 10 or 15 years, which means it's probably going to be there for another 50 because PennDOT doesn't do it much more frequently than that. That being said, staff does think as in looking at it that it may be good to consider the section of Cedar Hill from 309 to Bethlehem Pike as a priority route to add that. As well as the section of Bethlehem Pike between Cedar and Fairland, so kind of making that triangle in the corner there, and make those all priority routes, primarily because that location could be good for future development that could go there. And if it did redevelop, it is a potential area for a crosswalk on Bethlehem Pike at either Tintern or Fairland or something. So it seems like that would be a good one to add. Gypsy Hill Road came up several times, similar to Supervisor Martin had commented on at one of the last meetings. And the short answer to this one is staff has looked at Gypsy Hill Road and thinks it is worth making that a priority route. The main challenge on that one is the bridge between Huntsy Drive and Gwinnett Ave. But the township will try to push PennDOT to, when that's replaced, put something that has a little better pedestrian access on there. But we do recommend adding all of Gypsy Hill Road. Several residents talked about the need for more sidewalks along Bethlehem Pike in the area, especially near Dager Road. Good news, that was already on the priority area. There's a lot of support for that. I'll just say that it was very clear. We also had a request to consider extending the route on Bethlehem Pike south of Mount Pleasant. We stopped at Mount Pleasant where one side of the road is Ambler, one side is Lower Gwinnett, bring it down to Tennis Avenue. We don't control both sides of the road there. So what the staff is recommending on that one is we definitely see the value of being able to walk that side. Is maybe we make it a priority to work with Ambler on that area, but it's going to be pretty hard for us to unilaterally say we're going to put sidewalks there.
That's Ambler.
I'm sorry?
That is Ambler.
Exactly. And the side of the road where Artman is the kind of the obvious one to put sidewalks on.
Okay.
So I think it's we are good working with Ambler would be our thought.
Okay.
We did have somebody ask why pedestrians couldn't cross Route 202 in so many locations. That was basically PennDOT did a lot of studies on that one when they were expanding it. And they said safety criteria says these are the only places. And that's kind of the short answer to why that was is the way it is. We had other questions about the process here. Some of it had to do with the northwest corner of the township by Welch Road over by the Montgomery side. Bicycle accommodations and access to the Gwinnett Mercy trails. So in the northwest corner of the township, I'll just say that generally speaking, there's not a lot of room to add sidewalks because it's so many established neighborhoods that don't look like they're really up for redevelopment. So we didn't wind up making those roads priority on there. Of course, if the board wants to, we can change that. But from an engineering prioritization standpoint, it didn't seem like as much of a priority.
John?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Going back to the question about 202.
Yes.
Besides at the intersection, Sumneytown and 202, is there another pedestrian crosswalk across 202?
Chad, can you think of, I'm not. What about the light at the bottom of the sort of hill? Yeah, schoolhouse. There's not a crosswalk there.
There's a trail that goes under the bridge now, right? Green Ribbon Trail, but yeah, there's a long gap where there's you can't safely cross that road. So that's unfortunate because it really cuts our township into just like 309. Okay.
Isn't the pathway on the street right there at Schoolhouse? And I thought there was like the marking on the street where you could cross. There is not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, and Tessie, I agree. It's unfortunate, but PennDOT was basically blocking it, so
Yeah.
they'd have to approve it on that road. We have unfortunately little control over that one, but I totally agree with you. It would be nice.
Okay.
So it would be nice to have a crosswalk there at schoolhouse because that would connect the Pin Oak neighborhood with the rest of the township. Is there something we could do with PennDOT to ask them about that? Traffic
I was
engineer?
gonna say, I definitely defer to Chad on that one. I believe. if my
Mr.
memory
Traffic
serves me
Engineer?
correctly,
Oh,
I think we did have a connection, off the top of my head, I'm not looking at the map right now, but I think we did have a connection going from the Pen Oak Trails to the Green Ribbon Trail. So they
Oh,
could at least get down to the Green Ribbon and get across 202 that way, but I agree, there's obviously that wouldn't be as convenient as the other intersection.
Okay.
For the signalized intersections along 202, I was just taking a quick glance at them, and I believe most of them currently don't have crossings across 202, and that was primarily because there's no sidewalk facilities whatsoever at those intersections. So, you know, when PennDOT did the project, uh, I'm guessing they assumed it really didn't make any sense to put crossings in at this time when there's no sidewalk facilities at any of the four corners. It's not to mean it can't happen in the future, you know, if sidewalk facilities would ever be developed along Schoolhouse Road or Township Line Road. You know, typically a signalized intersection, if you're going to cross a road like 202, would be the safest place to do it. It's just a matter of there's no sidewalk facilities whatsoever at the intersection, so it didn't make sense to put them in at that time.
Yeah. Could we put it in as an aspirational crossing there at Schoolhouse? There's no sidewalk on this little Schoolhouse Street, and it is quite narrow, so I'm not sure it would have room for a sidewalk, but it doesn't have to be high priority, but if we just marked it as, you know, future consideration.
That is technically the Green Ribbon Trail. If you're walking it from Upper Gwinnett to get down, even Penn Lane, you have to walk through that stretch. But you're walking in people's yards and you're walking on the grass.
On Schoolhouse?
Mhm. I'm only saying this because I've walked the Green Ribbon Trail starting in Upper Gwinnett.
Yeah, so have I. I don't remember going that way, but it is, yes, if we can enhance the Green Ribbon Trail, that would be great. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I think what we can do, Chad, if this makes sense to you, is we can mark it on the map and then in the memo, we'll just make a note that that's, you know, subject to a lot of PennDOT approval and review or something like that, all right, perfect. Okay, Gwynedd Mercy Trails. We had a couple of people talking about having trouble accessing those in the past. From what our understanding is that was a COVID specific thing, that now there should be no restrictions to the public using the Gwynedd Mercy Trails. We also had a request to extend the sidewalk that currently ends at the former Texaco lot to the crosswalk between Gwynedd Hunt and Springhouse Village. To extend the sidewalk along the northern side, Penland Pike to Woodbridge Road and Edmore bike lanes. So the connection along Sumneytown Pike has been labeled as a priority, but it's not always on both sides of the road. In this case, there would need to be a crossing at some point. To fully build that out, we were looking at as less of a priority because there was a way to get across it. If the board wants to add both sides, we can do that. And rather than extend the sidewalk along Penland Pike on the northwest side of the road, the plan calls for an evaluation of the crossing of their carriages because we're trying to make use of the trail and sidewalk already in place rather than adding more sidewalk along that kind of north side of Penland Pike. Because there is you can kind of see it a little bit on the map on the screen. There's a perfect connection there. We did have a resident ask about a pedestrian bridge and trail along Worcester between Gwynedd Ave and Penland Pike. In doing some research and talking to some folks who've been to the township for a while, apparently there was a structure there several years ago. Our staff researched it and even took a walk out there to see if there was something there. They could not locate any bridge or anything. And it seems like having something to do with when SEPTA was making adjustments that this went away. I don't think we had enough. We just got this one and I think it was today. So we haven't really had enough time to get through that one. So I'd say we're leaving that one pending further research to.
Are you talking about where it dead ends in the Penland Pike across, or are they talking about underneath the SEPTA bridge?
So it was kind of paralleling the SEPTA bridge, if I understand it correctly, and then went under it maybe at some point. But I don't have a great handle on that one yet. That was one of the more recent ones that came in. But anyway, we can keep researching that one and see if it is something we might be able to do. We do, by the way, we expect the strategic plan to be a living document that will get updated in the future. So as we research this, they can change, of course. Let's see. We had more requests for crossings across Bethlehem Pike. we did explore it and look at some other specific options. The current road dynamics make it kind of difficult, especially meeting the PennDOT standards we would need. So identifying more mid-block crossings would probably be, and sorry, this is in the commercial section of Bethlehem Pike, and we know that that's one that comes up a lot. That probably needs to be in more of a look at the overall revitalization of Bethlehem Pike and the roadway itself, to have places like refuge islands or something like that in the middle where pedestrians could go to when you're doing a mid-block crossing on a road like that. That'll make it a lot more feasible and more acceptable to PennDOT. We also had some questions about Meeting House Road, that there were no crossings proposed for future ones on Meeting House Road, specifically the intersection with Lamplighter. We do think this one is worth exploring further. Chad, do you want to talk about the Lamplighter Meeting House one?
Sure. So at the West Lamplighter intersection of Meeting House, there is currently some sidewalk, I believe, on the southeast corner of the intersection, and there's the Lamplighter Trail connection that goes from Lamplighter Circle down to Parsons. So it does seem like a location to consider, a crossing to make that connection. It's something the township can consider further. There's a lot of vegetation along Meeting House Road, so we would have to, the township would have to take a closer look at, what vegetation may have to be removed or scaled back in order to get good sight lines for a crossing at that location.
So bottom line, we think this would be reasonable to add for sure. It would just, Chad again would be noting all these different things in the memo that would have to happen to make that go. Lamplighter. Someone asked about a crossing on Welsh between Darden and Evans Road. We did take a look at that, and there are just way too many physical obstacles to make that happen. The structural side of that, between having a creek there, guardrail on Welsh Road side, there's just too many obstacles there, unfortunately. Adding more proposed crossings on Penland Pike, in addition to the one that we did put on there. Again, Chad had taken a look at this one. Do you want to weigh in on that one at all? There's not a whole lot of good options aside from what we had put on there.
Yeah, during the course of the meetings with, I believe the Park and Rec Board and the EAC committee, this subject came up about more crossings on Penland Pike. We did identify one priority crossing location at the carriages. Woodbridge Road was also mentioned. There's some challenges there in terms of the vertical curve on Penland Pike and getting good sight lines. And just in general, along the entire length of Penland Pike, as everybody is familiar, there's very mature tree lines and vegetation buffers along Penland Pike. So it gets difficult in terms of adding a new crossing and getting all the ADA compliant facilities in terms of tree removal and maybe in some cases significant tree removal in order to get good sight lines for pedestrians getting ready to cross at a crosswalk. There's also some sections of the trail that sit down lower from the road elevation, which creates some challenges in terms of making ADA compliant crossings. So there's a number of challenges along Penland Pike in terms of getting more crossings in. It's not to say that it, just because the carriages is the only priority identified, it's not to say there can't be other crossings evaluated further in the future. But during the development of the plan, we felt the carriages crossing was the best one to identify as a priority.
Thanks, Chad. Final couple points. We did have some comments about equestrian trails that are marked on the map and that a lot of them are overgrown and not terribly passable. That is absolutely accurate. We thought, though, that for planning purposes, it was important to identify any location where we had any kind of access or easement or anything like that, so that we knew what the extent of our permissible trail area really could be on that. So we wanted to mark them. Yes, some of them are not maintained. We have varying levels of maintenance. Some are asphalt trails, all kinds of things. Finally, we had a comment that several of the existing crosswalks that were marked on the map need new paint. And yes, that is actually part of the recommendations coming in the plan, is to do things like restriping these crosswalks, doing additional signage and things like that. And I'll just make one more note that we also did receive several suggestions for updates to the existing pathway network that's on there. So we're reviewing that and we'll make any updates that we were able to verify. With that, I'll go over there so that the public can comment unless you guys have any questions for me immediately.
No, I just wanted to clarify, Supervisor Tursky advised me that I mispronounced your name when I introduced you, so I want to apologize and give you free will to mispronounce my name at any point in time.
Thank you. I'll use it judiciously. Quite frankly, I didn't even notice, but thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the board? Go ahead, sir. Any questions or comments from the public? If you just want to come up, state your name and address.
Eric Rudolph, 537 Montgomery Road. I might have missed it, but is the sidewalks also including crosswalks and bridges or tunnels in the area? Is that in the scope of the discussion?
No tunnels or bridges, just sidewalks and trails.
Was there a discussion of getting across Bethlehem Pike down by the high school to allow students to come from the neighborhoods over?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
The
you.
plan is on the website, so if you want to look at it, you can, it's still there. It's still up there, right, John? We didn't take it down. Okay. Any additional questions or comments? You can just come on up.
Kyle Dahl, 1458 West Lamplighter Lane. I just want to comment on Bethlehem Pike specifically.
Mhm.
So I know there are provisions for the trails or the sidewalks rather, especially by Dagger Road, which I know many students use. And I know we had mentioned the crosswalks and that there is certainly an interest in having those. And I think that should be very important. And more broadly, we should try and look to reinvigorate redeveloping Bethlehem Pike. I know that is a general goal as a economic corridor of the township, and that we should really try and do more to prioritize that. I've looked on the website and there are documents from, I think, 2004 about this. That's before I was born. And, I think it's just really important that we should look to make that a more pedestrian friendly environment. We have several shops that have closed down, I know, and whether that's Andy's Diner or there's, a Froyo place I used to go to. That's not fundamentally because of the nature of the road, but it's not pedestrian friendly in many fashions at all. And I think that's really important for an economic corridor. It needs to be inviting, not just a throughput for cars. So I just want to mention that. Thank you.
Before you go, Kyle, I just wanted to, and Mr. Torski probably has a lot to say about this, but we've been working on that comprehensive plan. So I think what you
Yeah.
saw with the comprehensive plan, we're at the end stages now. So we actually meet monthly, working with the county, working with your neighbors, volunteers to update that comprehensive plan to the end. Bethlehem Pike is one of the areas that we're looking to target. Unfortunately, we aren't property owners, so we are, but not on Bethlehem Pike necessarily. So we don't own the businesses. So it's about what we need to do and recommendations that the comprehensive plan will have as it relates to invigorating business owners to revitalize Bethlehem Pike. But crossing Dagger Road and for the students that want to get to the high school or just get to the Wawa safely is also a priority of ours. So thanks for coming out and thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nick Militello, 613 Montgomery Road. My specific question is, I didn't look at the plan, but there was, when I do a lot of walking with my dog in the neighborhood, we go down Penland Pike, right to the Worcester Road, and then that train station. I always go under the railroad tracks specifically because walking along Penn Ambler Road, this might be in the trail. Walking along the properties is not the problem. You get to a point where there's the park begins, there's this like the embankment.
Mhm.
So now I'm pushed into the street with my dog, which I want to keep on the inside because it's a dog and they don't know, they wander, even though I have control of it. But that's the most unsafe part. And the good part about what I'm asking in this potential plan for sidewalks is that I believe is part of the park system. So you could, in essence, create like a step system to go up to the park and create a sidewalk, not in the street. Is that part of the plan? Again, I haven't looked at the plan, but that's the biggest area I have a concern as a pedestrian that does walking.
We'll let our engineer answer.
Is that perfect?
So we're trying to go from Penn Ambler Park to the train station. Is that correct? To and
Right, I
from?
come down Penn Ambler, cross over those crosswalks.
Yeah.
And then,
So as part of a strategic plan for the park system that the township adopted a year or so ago, a trail from Penn Ambler Park, where it would cross over Penn Ambler there's an apex in the
Yep.
road there. So there would be a crossing there with rapid flashing beacons. So you'd press the button, you'd be able to cross. You'd get over to the Georgetown side of the road.
okay.
And then you go along Georgetown up to the corner by the train station. And then the goal is to reconfigure that intersection in a safe way so that you could then cross to get to the train station. And that actually received 2 grant funds and will be starting the preliminary design later this year. So it's in the
That's
works.
excellent, because that seems to be a wider section. The only flaw I see into that is that particular road, people like to drive very, very fast because it's relatively speaking an empty road. So that crosswalk where you're talking about, although I love the idea, I'm always nervous in Ambler because I live near Ambler on that where I live. Doesn't matter if you cross the street, people will run you over because they don't pay attention to the crosswalk. And the only one that they stop at is the one where they, right at the heart of Ambler, where they have the blinking lights. So as much as I like that idea, people don't respect crossing lanes, and that's unfortunate.
that we're gonna have the blinking lights.
Yeah, it would be similar to the ones
In
that were
Ambler.
put in along McKean Road by the YMCA.
That's gonna be probably the best option.
Yeah,
Awesome,
that's
thank
the
you.
design.
Perfect.
And our chief is here to hear that, so enforcement.
So hi, Tina Martin from Georgetown. I was here about a year ago commenting on the section of the trail that we were just talking about on Penn Ambler Pike. I have a boatload of questions. I spoke with Jimmy just before the meeting about this, and it appears maybe this is not the right venue to go into the details of that trail.
So I don't want to head off all your questions. Jimmy
Yeah.
did share it with the rest of the board, so we do have them. There is a meeting that's going to be planned, I think, in the fall. As to our engineer's point, we're getting ready to start the planning and the design of that trail. And at that meeting, it'll be a public meeting where we'll be able to answer a whole host more of questions. But I think I wanted to just touch on one of the questions because we just got it right before we came out. We're building the trail in the right of way, so it will be township property. It's not the property of Georgetown. And I can let our engineer,
taking any Georgetown.
yeah, we're not taking anything from
You're
Georgetown.
not
Gonna be
taking Geor-
responsible for any of it. It's
Correct.
all in the township right away. It's literally, we're not taking, I saw your questions as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how your insurance could increase because this isn't your property anyway. You're not responsible for it in any way. You don't have to plow it. You don't have to do anything. You're not liable for anything that happens on it. This is township property. It will always be township property. We're just building a trail. That's it.
And we've had, and our township staff have been in contact with members of the Georgetown, I guess, Board
Yeah,
Association,
Mhm.
Diane Schuler and Susan
right.
Ehrenbach.
Yeah,
So they've had conversations, and we're going to encourage all of the Georgetown residents that want to have a conversation. We're going to get together another public meeting or public conversation, answer all the questions that you have and go over everything. But I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that this isn't going to be Georgetown property at all. It's always been township property. We're just
Okay.
building a trail on the township property.
Well, that's encouraging because that solves a lot of problems
Yeah.
in terms
No
of
cost to you.
a
guys.
financial burden.
No, there's nothing,
Yeah.
there's
Be
nothing
any
that you guys
cost.
would have.
Okay,
Shouldn't affect your insurance rates at all.
okay. Just one quick follow-up and then I'll take a seat. But with regard to it being strictly your property, I think there's one spot where the trail is going to sort of come up over Stafford Avenue and go through the woods at a higher level that might actually be on our property. So,
So- And correct me if I'm wrong.
ahead,
No,
Jim.
go ahead, Jim. You do it. Go ahead.
So we haven't done really any design at this point. All we did was a feasibility study,
Mhm.
and then we used that feasibility study to present grant applications. And then now that we have the grant funding, part of that grant funding pays for the preliminary design,
Mhm.
which would be laying out the trail and deciding where it should be based on existing trees that are there, trying to miss them. It has to be a certain number of feet off the edge of the cartway per a PennDOT standard. So there's a potential that it may bend to miss a tree and come onto your property as it stands today, but there would be a discussion about right-of-way conveyance so that after the trail is constructed, it will 100% be on township-owned
Okay.
property.
Well, I mean, I think that solves a lot of problems. I still want to, I'm interested in attending that future meeting, but that's quite a relief. I think in general, and I don't want to speak for my whole community, but it's not that people are opposed to trails. People are frightened of a burden, a financial burden of maintenance or liability. So it sounds like,
We have that in mind.
Great.
When we're planning this. And you heard the gentleman right before you, there's a real value, as I'm sure you guys understand as Georgetown residents, to having a trail like this. The goal is not to burden you financially in any way, just to benefit the township. As Jim had said, we have grants for this, so it's largely funded. And again, it's just to make Lower Gwinnett more walkable and accessible.
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none. So I think we have before us the consideration to move forward with the plan. Hold on one second, let me just move. Will we do the recommendation action after is we want to take this public input, ensure that that feedback is incorporated in the final report. Do we need to do anything to solidify this strategic plan?
I think what we're going to do, if there's no more comment from the board or the public, is we'll revise the final
We'll
plans,
revise
the
it.
reports, and then maybe it goes on your agenda one more time for a formal adoption.
And then we'll adopt it? Okay, so you want to take all the feedback that John kind of.
Yeah,
and
we've
that the
been
pub-
getting feedback from a bunch of different places, and it didn't make sense for us to make a ton of little revisions. So we've been holding one big revision to the end. So
Okay, so I
we just
assumed that the
capture all
feedback that
this.
John was presenting to us, which was going to be incorporated, but that's fine.
all that feedback that John presented to you will be included in the final report.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much. Next up is public comment. Is this comment on questions or items that are not on the agenda?
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Suzanne Bush and I live on Schoolhouse Lane. My husband and I have lived in the township since 1991. I'm particularly interested in the Penland Woods issue because I was a donor to Wissahickon Valley Watershed Association when they were raising money to save Penland Woods. The township's website indicates that in 1994, the township with grant money from the county purchased Penland Woods.
Just one second. Is this on the agenda related to the amendment for
No.
Penland Woods Park?
No, it's
Okay,
not.
okay.
The website does not say that Wissahickon Valley Watershed, now known as Wissahickon Trails, contributed $270,000 to the acquisition of Penland Woods. And I do think that at the very least, the website should state correctly the history of the Penland Woods purchase and the Wissahickon Valley Watershed Association's part in the successful purchase of that.
Okay,
Just correction is all right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments on items not on the agenda?
Mr. Rudolph, is this about the chiller?
Yes.
All right, I just want to point out, we have a lengthy agenda tonight, as you've probably seen. Also, the board township is working with consultants on this issue. You're probably aware of that as well.
Not fully, no.
Okay, well, they are. And I understand there's been some suggestions, I won't use the word threat, but suggestions of litigation against the township.
No.
Well, I've heard them and others have heard them. And so at this point, you can certainly make a comment to the board, but there's not going to be any back and forth tonight.
Well, the first question I had was for the board is if they've heard the chiller running in the past 2 days.
Okay,
Okay, that really, because what I wanted to let you know is that right now, we're under assault from the chiller. Okay, and it's producing noise levels that my neighbors and I cannot exist, okay, in our yards. My wife cannot make a phone call anywhere around our yard and be able to hear the other person or hold a conversation. The noise is inside my house with the windows closed. The noise is waking up another neighbor at 6 o'clock in the morning every day. Okay? And this noise at the chiller, I've measured it at 100 decibels. That NIOSH I told you about previously, NIOSH says you're going to lose hearing in 15 minutes at that noise level. That's a public safety issue. I've notified the school district about that and they have done nothing about it. Okay. So this has been going on now. We're going to be going into our third day of very intense noise and the inability to take grandchildren outside to go into a wading pool when it's hot. Okay. This has gone beyond an annoyance. This has gone to the point of a public safety issue that impacts children that are at the Wissahickon Middle School. And if they have special needs, have a special problem that should be considered. Any person should have concern with this. Okay, so I appreciate the points, but that's the most fundamental piece we have. We're trying to work constructively, okay, to address this problem with the township and with the school board and the school district. So I think it's very important that we go through it because there's a clear and present danger to people. I, as an engineer, had to deal with this my entire career. Okay, working in chemical plants, refineries, when there's a safety issue, you see it, you identify it, you mitigate it, and then you go and fix it. That is not happening here. And I need to have closure. Our neighbors need to have closure in this matter. We can't sleep at night because people could get hurt.
thanks for bringing it to our attention.
So our concerns with this school district are regarding the handling of the facilities issue within the district. Okay, in particular, the Wissahickon Middle School chiller that has been and remains a safety hazard to the students, employees, and the public since its installation in 2018. Okay, the root cause of this problem was that a larger, louder chiller was installed outdoors without any sound abatement, okay, or enclosure, creating an ongoing public health and safety hazard. Complaints to the district were immediate upon installation. These complaints were made face-to-face with Jerry Moore, the Director of Facility and Grounds. They were made over the phone with the financial administrator at the time, Wade. Okay, the neighbors have documented these complaints in emails to the district in 2020 and to date, multiple times a year. Okay, these issues remain as the district has not performed an appropriate analysis of the situation and is treating it in a piecemeal manner. They have hired a consultant, however, they have not been able to work with the consultants or engineers in an effective manner to produce a solution that will serve their constituents. A summary of the situation has been captured multiple times. We know that. We're not trying to try your patience. We're just trying to do our diligence, okay, to protect our neighbors and ourselves. So this situation is serious, okay? It has several problem areas. There's excessive noise that I shared with you in and around the chiller. It's not just directly to your hearing. In that space, you cannot hear the backup horns of a truck when it's moving in the loading bay. Okay, that's where people get hurt. They can't hear the alarm over the noise from the chiller. So there's also a tonal noise quality in this. And this is maybe where some of the resources that you hired might be able to have people appreciate the quality of what a tonal noise is. Okay, and the chiller has been identified by their consultant in their first report in April of last year. They identified the tonal noise as the annoyance to the neighbors. first page, first paragraph, third sentence. Okay? And the qualities of a tonal noise, so I'm sorry about that. The chiller was identified by their consultant as an annoyance to the neighbors due to the tonal noise, the qualities of which are not accounted for in sound levels, as they are a narrow band of sound which humans are sensitive to. This sound, in this instance, can reach levels produced by a fire siren, okay, which in the victim's reality are blaring 13 hours a day, starting in April and ending in November. Every day. We can't turn it off. We can't control it. Third issue, is flawed testing. The chiller was identified as by the consultant as exceeding the township ordinance as determined by tests conducted when conditions were 56 Fahrenheit and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which are so obviously irrelevant to properly evaluating the actual conditions of the hot summer days when the chiller is operating. In May of 2024, the consultant made recommendations which only address the minimal requirements of the township ordinance, are calculated on irrelevant weather conditions, and woefully underestimated the required performance levels to handle the highest possible ambient temperatures, like in our current heat wave. The proper analysis is in plain sight for any competent engineer to produce based on the chiller's published performance specifications, which were provided in the building permit and not used. In October of 2024, the district put in place the minimum recommendation of the consultant 5 months after receiving the report. The sound blankets installed have failed to remedy the problem, which was predictable from the information in the consultant's report, which had been initially brought to the attention of the district multiple times in public meetings and has recently been addressed to the township seeking their assistance. Again, this piecemeal approach continues and again is headed towards failure as the district is only looking to meet the ordinance, which is not the only problem. This is an actual public health, safety, and nuisance crisis impacting students, special needs students, employees, and the public. We believe the original permitting needs to be reviewed more closely, as it has become obvious that this change was not a like-for-like replacement, but a major alteration that lacked adequate engineering and engineering review. Mitigation of this problem requires immediate action. While the problem is properly structured and the potential means to remediate the problem are identified. Okay, so I appreciate your comments. We don't want to waste your time. This is a big issue.
Thank you.
Any questions that you have? Oh, sorry.
My name's Mike Pickle. I live 600 Montgomery Road. I just had a quick question because I was trying to understand this. I work in the municipal area. I have a lot of contacts with and working with Gilmore and Associates, and I'm always kind of questioning how this happened and where was the review. But did Gilmore even review this? So it was only recently that I kind of was getting information, and I actually saw the original permit that went on July 3rd. What was the year? 2018, and it just said that the application for building permit, replace existing chiller, detailed description, remove existing multi-stack chiller that failed and replaced with new air-cooled chiller. You read this description, so you think you're just going to put in, anybody would read this, thinks you're just going to put in the same size chiller, put it in the same place, right? Replace one that failed. That isn't what happened, right? They put in a bigger air conditioner and moved it outside. So what I assume is because the permit isn't describing the work that was done, that the review that would have normally been done didn't occur. Unless there was a revised permit, maybe this was the intent and then they changed it and they put in a revised permit, but I haven't seen that. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. So the question you just said in the beginning, you said you were working with engineers.
I said consultants.
or consultants, okay, is that Gilmore and Associates, or they've been finally brought in to do maybe the review that should have been done in the beginning?
So, Mr. Pickle, Jim Hirsch, Township Engineer from Gilmore and Associates. I just wanted to clear up that this would have been a building permit issue, and the township has a separate code department and a separate consultant that reviews building code issues. So
It's
like,
complicated, they go to the,
well, Gilmore doesn't do code reviews in any municipality. We're civil engineers. So had this been a grading permit or a land development or something like that, then there would have been some level of review from us, but in no situation would the noise of a chiller be reviewed by Gilmore and Associates in any municipality in southeastern
so
Pennsylvania.
if the permit went in with describing the scope of the work that was done, and it's obviously it was much more complicated than replacing an existing chiller. I mean, you're saying you believe the people in the township have the ability to properly review that, or would they have sent that out to someone else, if not Gilmore?
This is something we're looking into, but we're not going to get into a debate tonight
I'm
about
not
that.
debating, I'm asking. So-
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify what our role is because you said our name a couple times. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I work at Horsham and you're.
Yeah, I heard.
Horsham, and I know you do a lot of review, planning and.
Sure.
Horsham, and you're called in and you.
Yep, and we have a similar role here, and there would be no situation where we would review a chiller.
I reviewed the, half of Horsham's new, middle school, right? Didn't you? That whole,
From a land development aspect, yes.
okay, my bad.
It's
And I
different.
thought it was.
It's okay.
forward.
Anything else?
What?
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, everybody. It's good to hear the Penn Ambler Road Park Trail is still on the agenda from 35 years ago. When we put it in originally and had to decide what to do about Georgetown. So the end result was we punted and said, give them the crosswalk and they can walk through the Georgetown parking lots and come out around the corner. So I don't know whether that helps your evaluation, but we've been struggling with that issue for a long time. However, I'm here today to discuss with my neighbors our roaring sky from the west. I have to tell you, the last 2 days have been bizarre. I'm not on the forefront of this sound. My neighbors on Montgomery Road are. And so there's several houses in between the property, the school property and mine. I walked out the kitchen door this morning and it was like being next door to a metal grinding factory. That's what's coming out of this thing. And I implore you tomorrow to spend 10 minutes over there on that property and absorb this. Because I did that 2 days ago with a mid-80 degrees day, standing outside the school. And 10 minutes later, I'm getting a headache. I don't get headaches. I don't get headaches unless I take a shot in high school football. I don't get headaches unless I get 103-degree temperature, which hasn't happened in decades, or I have one too many cocktails. I don't get headaches. And there was in 10 minutes. So you need to witness this. And I guarantee you, you will start paying attention to what we're saying. And Eric has done this unbelievable job of researching all of this material going back with right to know requests. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but one of the things he found out was this new chiller was bought before the engineer put the plan together to call for what the size of this chiller would be. And then the report came out, permit issued, report comes out based upon, here's what the noise is at 68 degrees. I'm not an engineer. I respect engineers, but what is with that? How do you rely upon an engineer who worked this analysis in to deal with the system that was already purchased? He had to bring down the temperature of the analysis so that the decibel level would reflect a lower number. That's what we're talking about here. pretty serious stuff. And so we know you don't have the direct, you have no significant fault in what we have here, but what we ask you to do is, you're here to protect your citizens. The school district is not protecting its citizens nor its students, in my opinion. And have they, with all the ruckus we have stirred up, have they brought in some medical person to say, well, you know what, if you have decibels like this going at this level all day, there's going to be students all around, there's going to be employees around there, and these people, are they or are they not in danger? I have to tell you, in addition to my headache, I'm now getting tinnitus. Now, I know that's a usual old man disease, but I'm getting it in the last year. So I just implore you to take seriously your duty to protect your residents. If that means sitting down with the school district people and getting to the bottom of this, because there's some ugly facts here on the part of the district, and then help us protect ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
In addition, any additional comments from the public?
Yes, Nick Militello, 613 Montgomery Road. I'll make it brief. Mr. Stein, I very much appreciate what you said. I'm not going to waste your time with like all the accusations and all the information you've gotten that tons of times. Ms. Duckett and Mr. Twersky, I very much appreciate you having some of the representatives from the school, myself and Eric, at a meeting to discuss these things in the format. Because prior to that, we've never had a conversation with the school, no matter how many times we've reached out. But there are a few concerns, and I have very specific questions, because what was done was done. It's not going to change. They spent the money on the system. They can't change that. They can, but they won't, and I get that. My concern is very specific, and I have specific points. My concern is there's a lot of expressions that come to mind. They're throwing good money after bad, and I'm going to explain how they're doing that. They did a report, multiple reports. They were done at 68 degrees and somewhere a little bit warmer. Long story short, with Eric's help and myself, we read through the report that they gave us, and they ran the system at 100% speed. Speed is different than load. Speed is the speed of the systems running the fans. The load is the amount of compression necessary to cool it in a hot day, 98 degrees, which we've been having the past 2 days. We pointed that out and said, please correct this. And they said, oh no, that was a mistake and typo. They never corrected it. Here's my concern, and this is my question to the district or to you guys. And it was a question to the district. They now had a plan to put in this wall, very expensive wall. But instead of putting in that expensive wall at $400,000, which is a lot of money, they're going to put in an $85,000 wall. Here's my concern. The report was never amended to say load, which is a distinctive difference. So my concern is this. They're not using the right information. They're putting in an $85,000 wall. That is not going to work. So my question to you, and this is like for our protection, same questions. So it's a very specific future question. Let's plan it now and see what we could do. If this doesn't work, there is a law, there is a ordinance where if they don't comply, that there's a $1,000 penalty per day this is operating where the sound goes above the system. They know that, we know this. They're piecemealing it. They're throwing good money after bad. They're putting $85,000 into it instead of doing it the right way the first time. My question is, if they put this $85,000 structure in, and it doesn't do what it's going to do on the 95-degree days, will the township saying, you could have done the right choice. You could have put this $400,000 wall. You could have put it back inside. You could have. You chose not to. That's fine. That's your choice. Mr. Twersky, you made that point. You said, I can't tell them what to do with their money and how they operate it. Fair enough. What you can do is saying you made the wrong choices and it's still affecting people. That's what I'm asking. Will there be enforcement if this solution that they put in place, which again, I believe is inefficient, will be inefficient? Time will tell. Will you enforce that? Because that's my concern is they do piecemeal and then they get bought year after year after year of time where we have to then endorse. And my backyard is right next to their property. I was grilling this in the evening before I came here. And I couldn't have a conversation with the person I was outside with. Now, granted, we didn't stay outside, but it's very frustrating. So it was a very specific future asking question. And I do respect and very much appreciate your time you've spent with us and listened to us talk about this. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to be even briefer than brief, and that is, even though I'm an engineer, I'm not going to talk about engineering. I'm a resident of 525 Montgomery Road. There are at least 5 houses that you've heard from, starting with Irene at 517, all the way up the line toward the Rudolphs, and many more who are not here tonight. We've been hearing how discussions are ongoing. We're a little bit between a rock and a hard place now because the Wissahickon School District has been talking about trying to fix this for several years. They're saying, we're going to try these sound blankets. We waited for many months for these sound blankets. They're apparently installed right now. And whether it's 95 degrees or 73 degrees, when those things are on, it makes an unacceptably loud noise, which is a public as well as a private nuisance. It's in violation of the ordinance if you can figure out what the decibel levels mean in that thing. So, but we can't get the township to enforce that ordinance. So we can't get the district to fix the problem. They keep giving us excuses. It's gone on for years. And we can't get the township to enforce the ordinance that the district is violating. So procedurally, we don't know what to do, except I guess the next step might be to file a lawsuit, which we'd like to avoid. I guess the other point would be vote everybody out of office who's not acting on the problem. So please help us solve this private and public nuisance. All right.
Any additional questions or comments on items not on the agenda?
I just wanted to be here to let you know, I'm Irene Lewis. I live at 513 Montgomery Road. I'm like towards the end of the street. When I come out of my house the past 2 days, it's maddening. My husband's complaining, my son is complaining. And what are you, I've been here before. What are you doing about this? I'm trying, anyway. So the thing is that the past 2 days have been unbearable. And when I'm walking my dog, it's all I think about. When I'm walking through the woods, trying to get exercise and take in nature and listen to the birds, it's all I think about is this noise. And I just can't even imagine what it's like for the children that are running around in front of this equipment. I mean, these children are not going to say anything. They're not going to go home and tell their parents. But I just want to let you know that it has gotten so much worse. They put these blankets on, which did nothing. And we waited until October for that. Now, I don't know how long we're supposed to wait for this wall that they're going to put in, but I'm telling you that in the meantime, it's unbearable. On my way here, the chillers, the units were still running, that were at 7 o'clock at night, and there were no cars in the parking lot. So I'm just saying that there doesn't seem to be any sensitivity to, well, maybe we can turn them off earlier. Maybe the inside temperature is 68 degrees. If we turn them off at 5 o'clock, the temperature maybe will reach 72 degrees. Anyway, I'm just saying that some sensitivity to how the neighbors are being impacted, would be appreciated. I mean, it doesn't seem like any accommodations have been made. So I just want to let you know. Thanks for your time.
One more comment. I did want to just let you know that we did start to file complaints, okay, with the township so that you can build a record for the public annoyance, okay? And those are accumulated. These complaints span from Montgomery Road, from Bethlehem Pike, as it circles around to Mount Pleasant. They span from the back of our guard over to Ambler, the line over on Mount Pleasant for Ambler Borough. You can hear that. That sound is all the way down to Knight Road, and you have complaints from Francis coming in on this. Okay, so this is a very large issue. It's all predictable. And that information, those predictions were provided to the township and to the district back in November. Okay, and so we really appreciate you investing in the person. We would look forward to working with them to help them understand the issue, okay, the facets we have, and make us feel better that we're moving forward with resolving this. So thank you for making that investment. We look forward to working with it.
Any additional?
If I may add on briefly to what Eric was saying, he's done so much work on this, and there's so many facts to deal with. But one of the things that he observed, because he checks this time of operation of the chillers, as to whether there's anybody in the building. And what he observed recently, within the last week or 10 days, Eric, all of a sudden, the time of beginning of the blaring noise was moved from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 a.m., and the ending from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm not a naturally suspicious person, but that sure smells of retaliation, I have to tell you. Because there seems to be no other explanation for it. They didn't change the hours of anything. They just put the blare on for 3 more hours a day. Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments on items not on the agenda? Anybody online? Seeing none, we're going to move on to our public hearing. Turn it over to our solicitor.
This is a public hearing to consider the application of Gwen and Mercy Academy High School, legal owner of property at 1345 Sumneytown Pike, consisting of approximately 42 acres located within the A residential zoning district. This is a conditional use application, which means that the applicant has the initial burden of proof. Anyone objecting to the application would then have the burden to demonstrate why it's contrary to the public health, safety, or welfare. The board is sitting in a quasi judicial capacity. So the way we'll operate this evening is the applicant will make its presentation through witnesses and evidence. The board will have the opportunity to question witnesses, as will the public. And then at the conclusion, we'll have public comment. Also, if anyone desires party status, now would be the time. Parties can certainly cross-examine witnesses, present evidence, and have the right to appeal the board's decision. Is there anyone physically present who wishes party status or online who wishes party status? Seems like the answer is no. So I'm going to introduce some township exhibits before I turn it over to the applicant. Exhibit T1 is the conditional use application dated May 2nd, 2025, and exhibits, including the deed for the property and plans. Exhibit T2, public notice of the hearing. Exhibit T3, the proofs of publication, confirming publication in the Reporter on June the 3rd and June the 10th. Exhibit T4, the review letter of the township engineer, Gilmore and Associates, dated May 15. Exhibit T5, Montgomery County Planning Commission's review, also dated May 15. And Exhibit T6, the meeting minutes of the Lower Gwinnett Township Planning Commission meeting of May 21st, 2025, at which meeting the application was reviewed and approval recommended, subject to certain conditions, which I'm sure the applicant will address. Is there anyone here this evening representing the applicant?
Yes, good evening. Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin.
Feel free to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm here with Tim Woodrow, who's my civil engineer. Denise Marbuck, the president of Gwen and Mercy Academy High School, is here as well. I don't plan on calling Denise, but if you have questions for her, she's available. I plan to keep this simple for you. It's been a long night already, I think, and you have an agenda ahead of you. Tim is a licensed professional engineer, and he'll summarize this case for you. I'll just give you a little preview. We want to do a trail connection from the school building to the track and field facility. In order to do that, we need to build a boardwalk over a stream in the middle of the campus. To do that, we would encroach within the wetland and riparian corridor buffers. We have obtained a DEP permit to do this. And as your solicitor pointed out, your civil engineer, Gilmore and Associates, reviewed this and provided comments. County Planning Commission did as well, all of which are will complies. We have no issues. We had a nice discussion with the Planning Commission, and they, as was indicated, made a recommendation. So we're going to get into it and cover the requirements for a conditional use and get on with it. So Tim, I've identified you. Let's have you sworn in.
I do. Timothy Woodrow.
And Tim, you're a licensed civil engineer,
Yes, I am.
and you've been sworn in and accepted as an expert.
It pains me to say that we don't have to go through that.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you,
You'll
Mr.
be
Well,
accepted as an expert in civil engineering.
great, thank you so much. And your office prepared the plans that are the subject of this application?
Yes, we did.
And your office also prepared the application to DEP for the general permit necessary for this crossing, is that true?
That is correct.
Could you walk over to the screen on which
can.
is a copy of the plan that was submitted as part of our application, and just describe what it is that we are doing?
Great. I guess just for context, the orange shaded portion of the building is the recent addition we made to the high school over the last summer, year and a half or so. To the right side of the page is our existing athletic facility, turf field and stadium and track. And what we would really like to do is to connect, especially the locker rooms and the back of the school property more conveniently to the athletic fields. Helps for maintenance, helps for safety for the girls as they're going back and forth between the two facilities, and makes for a much more convenient connection between those two parts of campus. And so, as you pointed out, this is a boardwalk type construction. It will have pilings, but no major fill within any of the riparian corridor protected areas. Again, DEP reviewed this and have worked with our environmental consultants to issue permit.
One of the requirements is that we plant vegetation to make up for any of the encroachment by the pilings, and we've agreed to do that, right?
That is correct.
And that was brought up in the County Planning Commission review letter, correct?
It was indeed
And that's one of the requirements in the zoning ordinance, true?
true.
And the Gilmore letter pointed out that we need a stormwater management agreement and a grading permit as necessary, and you would do that, right, Tim?
Yes, if we are successful securing our conditional use approval, the next step would be a grading permit application that would address all the conditions that would be present in the
And all the
decision.
conditions in the Gilmore letter, there's a couple more, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then the requirements for a conditional use are found in section 1298.07 of the zoning ordinance. I'm just going to summarize them quickly. You and I went over them prior to this hearing, right? Correct?
That is correct.
Does this application meet the legislative intent of the ordinance?
Yes,
And we have a right to seek this conditional use for what is proposed, true?
true.
And this would not adversely affect the neighboring land uses?
It would not.
And this would not in any way affect the public service systems normally attached to a conditional use like peak traffic or accommodations for police, fire protection, or utilities. They're not involved with this application, true?
They are not, that is a true statement.
And neither is internal circulation, parking, or buffering?
That is correct.
Is it your opinion that we have submitted sufficient plans, studies, or other data necessary to demonstrate compliance with this, with the requirements necessary?
Yes, that is my opinion. We have.
Okay, they're all the questions I have for Tim.
Couple questions for Tim. Is that plan identical to the one that was submitted with the application?
It is, Jamie, actually, the second sheet of that thumb drive shows the actual plan that we submitted to the DEP for permit. The first illustration was more a general illustration of where we were and what we were doing.
This plan gave some more detail as to the specifics of the crossing.
And second question, one of the requirements in the zoning code is that no reasonable engineering alternative exists. Is that your testimony as well?
It is. We actually walked this channel with our wetlands consultants in cooperation with DEP and chose the location that had the least impact on that corridor.
That's all the questions I have.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you're planning, well, first of all, how are the girls getting to the field now?
They're going on university property on the main access road. So to the bottom of the page, leaving here, coming down this roadway, and then accessing the fields through that path.
Okay, so this would be much more direct.
Very much so. Yes.
If you are cutting down some plants, wetland bushes and so forth, where is your proposal to replace those?
Great. Immediately adjacent is the theory. So there is a bit of a widened area of wetland just to the southeast of that crossing. And as we walked it with a wetlands consultant, we thought that would be a good location for some additional plant material.
Well, and how do you know what quantity of plants to replace?
Well, I think we would walk the site with Gilmore and Associates. We would identify those plants that were being disturbed. Again, we tried to pick a path through that corridor to avoid any major trees, to avoid any major vegetation. And so that was one of the criteria that we looked at in choosing this alternative. And so I don't know that we're disturbing much. And again, we're not filling. So this is a boardwalk type construction.
Mhm.
So I really believe we have chosen the minimum disturbance necessary to afford that crossing.
Okay, thank you.
Just hoping if I could get some clarification, because
Sure.
it's referred to differently in the different documents. I think Gilmore Associates refers to this as the installation of an asphalt trail and a pedestrian bridge. I think the county referred to it as a pedestrian bridge. And I think today, Ms. Pianta referred to it as a boardwalk style bridge. So is there asphalt? Is there bridge? Is anything touching the ground, or is it all above?
Good, very good question. That probably deserves a better explanation. So outside of the riparian corridor, outside of that area protected by township ordinance and outside the area of this hearing, there will be an asphalt trail. And the area that crosses and touches and impacts that riparian corridor protected area will be a boardwalk type bridge. We've looked at a couple of different alternatives for bridge construction. We found maybe the most effective is a company out of Florida, York Timber Bridge. We've dealt with them often in the area, and they come in, they stick build the structure on site with a minimum of disturbance.
Thank you for that.
Neil, I don't think this is the same plan that was submitted as part of the application.
So why don't we mark this as Exhibit A1?
Yeah, and I can email you a copy of this tomorrow.
Super.
I got a quick question in regards to the maintenance of this bridge. What goes into it, and does the maintenance affect any of the area within the protected land?
Good question. A couple of these installations that we've done in the past, we've got one in Worcester, one in Skipback that we've done with the same company. And one of the things they pride themselves on is very little maintenance. There is some seal coating of the wood when it initially goes in, but after that, it's pretty much maintenance free for the foreseeable future. Obviously, it's a timber product. It does require some sealing once in a while, but nothing that would adversely impact the wetland corridor.
How long, what's the life expectancy of this?
Yeah, they're saying 50, 75 years, yeah, that's
Impressive.
part of their propaganda, I guess you would say. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Additional questions from the board?
Any other witnesses?
No.
Now will be the time they ask for public comment.
Are there any public comments?
There's a message in the chat from Wissahickon Trails, and they're asking, will you be using native plants in your plantings?
Yes. And I certainly, that is one of the things that, that we can go over with the town engineers and their landscape architecture department, make sure we're picking appropriate material for that restoration.
Any additional public comments? You can kind of come up.
I was just curious.
I think you have to state your name.
Kyle Dahl, 1458 West Lamplighter Lane. I was just curious if there was any consideration for the, I know along Evans, excuse me, there's a 15 foot easement for a trail there. Was there consideration of the future bridge that will likely cross that? The area there?
A good question. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's all. Thank you.
Any additional public comments? You have a comment? Or? I think that's it.
Want to make a closing?
I would just ask that all the exhibits be moved on to the record, including that A1 that I'll send you tomorrow, and that you look favorably upon our application. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll close the hearing and the board will render a decision at its July 22nd.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Well, I think we're gonna turn it over to our conditional use hearing for Folkways and turn it back over to our solicitor.
Thank you. This is a conditional use application filed by Folkways at Gwynedd, legal owner of property known as 1120 Meeting House Road, made up of multiple tax parcels described in the application, consisting of approximately 100.81 acres located within the MF-3A zoning district. This is a similar conditional use to allow for disturbance in the riparian corridor. The same burden of proof will be applicable to this application as with the prior application. Again, we will follow the same format for the hearing, and I will begin by introducing certain township exhibits. Exhibit T1 is the conditional use application dated May 2nd, 2025, and accompanying exhibits, including the deed and plans. Exhibit T2, public notice of the hearing. Exhibit T3, proofs of publication for the hearing notice confirming publication on June the 3rd and June the 10th. Exhibit T4, review letter of the township engineer Gilmore and Associates dated May 16, 2025. Exhibit T5 is the Montgomery County Planning Commission's letter of May 15, 2025. And Exhibit T6, meeting minutes of the Lower Gwynedd Township Planning Commission meeting of May 21, 2025. Feel free to proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin. I'm here tonight representing Folkways. I have with me Tim Woodrow, our licensed professional engineer, Bill Durbin, who is from Folkways. He's the Director of Projects and Technology. He is here as well. If you have questions for him, I don't plan on calling him. I'm just planning on calling Tim, but if you have questions, he'll be here to answer them. I'm going to ask for Tim to be sworn in and we'll get right to it.
I do.
Would the board accept him as an expert in the field of civil engineering?
Hearing no objection, the board will so accept.
Thank you. And we are going to have 2 slides that are not part of your packet, but I will email them to you tomorrow. The one that's on the screen, if we could mark that. Did you say A1 for this one?
Yes.
Okay,
For applicant.
thank you. So the sum and substance of this application is there is an end wall on this property that was part and parcel of a stormwater management system that Tim's going to tell you about. Where that end wall is has created a swale, a ditch, so to speak, where water moves and eventually leads and feeds to a wetland area. What we're going to do is pipe that area. And so it moves it down, just like we could have piped it and moved the end wall down, it will still flow to the wetland area. In fact, that was very important to your Township Planning Commission. They wanted to be sure that we didn't do anything to stop the flow of water to keep those wetlands alive. And that's exactly what we're doing with this application. Like the previous application, we do have our DEP permit. We do have the Gilmore review letter, no problem with that. Again, the County Planning Commission asked us to plant to mitigate the disturbance that is happening here with this. This is being done because there is plans to renovate the fitness center. As you know, Folkways is over 55 years old now. I believe we were here at the 50th year, and they're doing a lot to improve the community. They are fundraising still, in the planning process still, for an expansion of the fitness center, but there are tons of things going on around this area that this is the only place for the expansion. There are utilities on the right side of the building. There's parking on the other side. There's driveways on the left side. So Tim's gonna walk you through how this system works and what it will look like once this piping occurs. Tim.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. This first exhibit, I was trying to illustrate the area of campus where we're discussing and a little bit of how this storm source system gathers water from the vast majority of the core of campus and then discharges that water in that highlighted box in the center of the screen. So all the red lines are storm sewer pipes. They come together and discharge at a point just south of that fitness center. And so that's the area of campus. Yeah, Jamie, thank you. That kind of shows a lot of the infrastructure. We try and keep a record of all the utilities and as-built information on campus. And so the area we're talking about is highlighted in that clouded maroon box. And so Jane, maybe we could switch to the next sheet, which really focuses in a little more specifically on the area of interest.
And this would be A2.
A2. And so in this depicted shot of the screen, we've kind of focused in on that area, very specific to the fitness center and that point where that storm source system discharges into what has been mapped as waters of the Commonwealth. Again, our environmental consultants were out. We've made applications to DEP with photographic evidence, soil scientific evidence, and described that area as waters of the Commonwealth, as opposed to where the actual federally protected wetlands begin. And so the wetlands are the area in the blue. They continue to the left of the, or the right of the page down to the east of campus. That is our large wetland area. This eroded channel is what we're hoping to pipe and make ourselves some room for an expansion of that fitness center to the bottom of the page. I don't know that that we're really affecting anything of quality or substance there. It is kind of an overgrown area. Again, an eroded channel. It's got vertical, sheer, exposed soil banks of the soil, and certainly something that we would like to correct. There's actually an exposed sanitary sewer lateral adjacent to the building that is open to that channel. So by piping that, we are actually protecting that sanitary sewer line with our proposed work. The new head wall is going to occur just to the left side of that green line. That is the area of most dense vegetation on campus. If you look at an aerial photograph of Folkways, that area to the right side of the fitness center is really where our heaviest woodlands occur. It's where we have some walking trails. There is a bird blind back there, a picnic area, and that's a very important area on campus to our residents. And they are being very aware and have given us a lot of input as to what we are doing in these areas. And so that's our proposal to extend that existing storm sewer system to a point just to the right side of the fitness center, kind of stopping before the woods get most heavy. And again, once we get past that sanitary sewer line that is exposed in the creek.
Tim, you heard me describe the obstacles in expanding the building in any other direction. And I spoke about those utilities. Can you describe them? You can kind of see them between the green line and the fitness center building.
Yeah, so this conversation comes after a couple of years actually of studies and focus groups on campus and with the architects. That area to the north side of the building is where the vast majority of our infrastructure occurs. There is sanitary sewer, there's electric systems, there's cable TV, gas pipeline. There's just a spaghetti bowl mix of utilities to the north side of the building that made extending the building to the north almost impossible. That's also where our main loading dock is. An operations center of campus is right in that area, just north of the fitness center. So we really need that area open. That's where all our deliveries come in, food, laundry's kind of back in that area. So it's a very dense and cumbersome area of campus to work. So the only feasible spot we felt to provide an expansion to the fitness center was to the south of the building.
So moving the stormwater management facilities over, right? That's basically what we're doing. We're taking a man-made stormwater management facility and expanding it, right? We are basically moving that stormwater facility over in order to make room for that new construction. That is the only reasonable engineering alternative.
That's what we concluded. That's correct. Yes.
And we would agree to replace the encroachment, what it is that we're doing here. When we would put that pipe in, we would do the plantings necessary in order to make up that encroachment, right? Just like the other application.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I think our residents will hold us to a higher standard than even the township. So you can be
Right.
sure of that. Yeah.
I mean, and that's not a joke, right?
No,
Kids
absolutely not.
always- They really care about woodlands, they care about wetlands, they care about riparian. So this is a sensitive topic even for them. We would have to replace this area.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the Gilmore review letter had the same requirements that we get the DEP permit, which we have, that we submit a grading permit, which we will, right? There were the only 2 comments and you agree to those, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and then the general provisions for conditional uses are found in section 1298.07. Let's go through those. Does this application meet the legislative intent of the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
And is it your opinion that we have a right to seek this conditional use?
Yes.
Is it your opinion that this does not adversely affect neighboring land uses?
That is correct. It does not.
And does this in any way affect existing public service systems, peak traffic, or any other police protection, fire protection, utilities, and the like?
It does not.
Does it affect internal circulation, parking, buffering, or other elements of proper design?
It does not.
And is it your opinion that we have submitted sufficient plans, studies, or other data to demonstrate compliance?
Yes, that's my opinion.
Thank you. They're all the questions I have.
Before the board asks questions, I have one question, Tim. The application in your plan says there's 160 linear feet of pipe, but the Gilmore letter says 140 linear feet.
Good question. Mr. Hirsch and I will work through that discrepancy. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I certainly the intended terminal point of that head wall is consistent. And, you know, depending on it's a linear measurement or an angle measurement, yeah, so we'll coordinate that, but the position of that end wall would be the same.
Very good.
Any questions from the board?
Yes, so the area that you have drawn in as yellow with the crosshatch, that's the channel you're going to take underground?
That is correct.
And what size pipe are you going to be using?
We're going good question. 30-inch pipe is what we're proposing to use there.
And what material is the?
Reinforced concrete.
Concrete, okay. So I'm not such a fan of taking a wetland and putting it underground, but in this case, it seems like the only feasible engineering approach that you can have and still, you know, build your fitness center there. So the DEP had no qualms about doing this?
They had questions that I think we answered, and I think they did a thorough review. But at the end of the day, they issued the permit and didn't have any conditions placed upon that permit.
Okay. And will you be, I'm sorry if I missed it. Are you
No.
going to be you're going to be removing a lot of plantings along the current channel?
Well, not a tremendous amount with the piping. We're going to put the pipe basically in the channel. There will be some disturbance, obviously, as we get into excavate. If and when we do the fitness center addition, there will be much more disturbance of vegetation at that time.
Okay, but that's a separate.
Separate application. We'll be
Okay.
back before you for a land development plan when that time comes.
Okay. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board?
Any additional witnesses?
No.
Would you like to sum up? Oh, public comments.
Is there any comments from the public?
No.
No one online?
No. Okay. I'd like to move all the exhibits onto the record. I will send you those 2 exhibits via email. We ask that you look kindly upon this application and understand we are not touching the wetlands or the wetlands buffer. This is the riparian buffer. We thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll close the hearing and the decision will be rendered July 22nd.
Thank you. Nice to
you.
see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Generally, we like to pause so our guests can leave in a timely fashion, but being as it's 8:30, we're going to plow ahead. I wanted to make some comments related to our school resource officer, and I wanted to make sure that I gave the rest of the board the opportunity to comment as well. We had talked, I think, at our previous meeting, maybe a few months ago. No, it wasn't a few months, well, May-ish, April, around a conversation that we had been actively having with the Wissahickon School District and other municipalities that feed students into the Wissahickon School District around the livelihood of the school resource officer. And the Wissahickon School District was faced with some budget constraints and some financial pressures that they had to, contend with. As part of that decision-making process, the school district decided to not move forward with the school resource officer as a Lower Gwinnett Township police officer anymore. It was a very difficult decision to hear, but it's a policy decision that the school district made. We wanted to make sure that we took the time, as we have done with all of our school resource officers, to emphasize that the broader role of the school resource officer in school communities, unlike armed security personnel, they're specifically trained for school environments. They enable relationship building with students, early identification of behavioral health concerns, and use restorative justice practices to address conflict. And I could go on and on about the research, but we wanted to make sure that, like all of the other school resource officers before her, we took time to thank Officer Shannon Gallagher for her presence, compassion, and her commitment to the Wissahickon School District and their students. We believe that her approach for school safety went far beyond enforcement. She built trust with the students, partnered with educators, and served as a visible reminder that law enforcement can be rooted in care and connection. Officer Gallagher showed up for our students and staff in ways that made a real and lasting impact. And her ability to balance professionalism with approachability left an impression undoubtedly that will carry forward well beyond her time with the Wissahickon School District. As her service with the district concludes, again, this is me on behalf of the board, wanting to thank her, as we did with Officer Dr. Sandburn, Sergeant Rogie, and all the other officers that filled in during our time and our tenure, providing a police officer to the school district. We feel that not only for safety, she helped to ensure that relationships were cultivated and then example was set. So we want to thank Officer Gallagher, and I know that she's not here tonight. We wanted her to come tonight, but our officers, not shockingly, don't like to have a lot of recognition. So she wants to wait to be recognized when other officers are recognized. And being as though we're not sure when that will occur, I wanted to make sure that we took this time right now to thank her, to thank the police department as a whole, because it has been something that they have prioritized. And like the other school resource officers before her, she did a tremendous job. So just wanted to thank her on behalf of the board. Moving on, we have consideration of public hearing and possible decision related Penland Woods Park conservation. So I think I'm turning it back over.
Thank you. This is a public hearing to consider an amendment to a voluntary declaration of conservation easement dated September 19, 1994. I believe the board has previously seen this document, but it was signed and recorded as a part of the conservation of Penland Woods, which everyone knows consists of 77 acres. The declaration created two zones of protection, easement area 1 and easement area 2. The purpose of tonight's proposed amendment, through cooperation with the Montgomery County Commissioners, the Open Space Board, and the Wissahickon Trails Organization, is to create within a new amendment a specific notice provision so that should there be any further amendment or proposed amendment to the conservation easement, that a specific notification be sent to the Wissahickon Trails Organization. So there'd be no doubt in the future that they would receive appropriate notice of any potential amendment.
Questions from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? No. Seeing none.
Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the Second Amendment to the Penland Woods Conservation Easement notification. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
I know that we made a decision. I just wanted to publicly thank Mimi and the board for continuing this effort. It's going on more than 3 years now. You got a couple of towers controlled, so thank you for your continued effort.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Record closed.
Record is closed. Thank you.
Yes.
Have a good evening. What's left of it.
Thank you. Thank you. We apologize. Next up, we're gonna consider a proposal to update our locks at the Penland Woods Community Building. And again, if anyone would like to leave, by all means. We will not be offended.
Anybody?
So I think Fred prepared a memo that's included in our board packet. I'm not sure, Fred, you want to update us or you want me to give a summarization of it and then you answer any questions? Which do you prefer?
Well, I can give you a summarization. We had a proposal last year for the budget to do 8 locks at the Penland Woods Park building. We talking with Sandy and Clint and Mimi, we cut that back to 4 locks. 4 works out for us. It also works out for the building the system because the control unit actually has 4 ports in it. So 4 lock systems there. And this would include changing the roll-up door to a single man door. Clint's here tonight. Any kind of technical questions for this? He did all the research for, so I would defer to him. But we have, I think,
Planner-
you put 40,000 in the budget tentatively. This is cut down by half. This would be a similar system to what's in the building here. So it would be remote access where we could open the doors and close the doors from a computer. It would also have key fobs and locks that would unlock on a predetermined time if we needed to.
I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, Fred, but you've answered plenty of questions. Clint, are you happy with this?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Any other questions from the board?
I'd just like to say thank you for being so conservative with the cost. That is a much more reasonable cost for the budget. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? Thank you guys so much for all your research and for pulling this together. We appreciate it tremendously. I'd like to make a motion to approve the updated locks at Penland Community Building in the amount of $21,562.42 plus $76 per month for software. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up, consideration for the award for our residential trash and recycling collection. Included in the board packet is the, and thank you guys. Feel free to leave at will. We appreciate it. Included in the board packet is the trash and recycling collection bid results. It outlined that both Republic and Waste Management, Whitetail and Domascara and Sons submitted bids. I think the staff have pulled together all of the collaborative responses and highlighted the cost as it would relate to the tabulation sheet and reference for lowest bidders. Republic with a 3-year contract would be $3,911,000. Broken out quarterly, there's 3 different prices for year 1, 2, and 3. A once per week collection with Whitetail, a 3-year contract, $3,150,000, and is broken out per quarter for year 1, 2, and 3. Are there any questions from the board? Just to note, Republic also includes within their bid a low volume option and a senior citizen discount, whereas White Disposal offered a senior citizen discount, but did not offer a low volume option. Any questions from the board?
Are we voting between 1 day a week versus 2 days a week? And if it's 1 day a week, the lowest bidder is Whitetail. And if it's 2 times a week, it's Republic. Is that what we're deciding tonight?
That's good.
Gotcha.
And so just to make sure that I'm also clear, if we go with the twice per week collection, which is the lowest bidder, which is Republic, they have also come forward with a low volume option for our residents, as well as a senior citizen discount. Whereas if we go with the 1 week collection, once per week collection, White Disposal only offers a senior citizen discount, but not a low volume option. So those prices are for just the twice per week collection, not, and the tabulation, that's where the other information is.
Correct.
Any additional questions?
I'm sorry.
All right, come on.
Not to make this longer than it needs to be, but what is the low volume option?
I forget if it was,
It's right in the, it's on line 3.
oh, is it in mine?
It's in the tabulation chart, and I think it's highlighted. The total cost for,
I understand the cost. What is,
Oh.
what makes something low volume?
I got you.
So Jamie put together the bid. That's why I'm deferring to her. And I think what she's doing is pulling out the details from the bid
Yeah,
to
so
explain. the difference.
the low volume, so the low volume option was, they will have a smaller, trash, receptacle,
And will they not pay 117 a quarter?
right? They will pay, 117 a quarter is $39, a month. They'll be at $31 a month.
Okay, so that's that's $31 a month. Make me do math here. Okay, so that's pretty
It's
close to
93.
the Whitetail disposal. And what's the senior discount? How would they have to be together?
Oh.
The senior discount is really just a percentage off of the total monthly cost. So they don't necessarily have to be low volume. They're going to just get the discount, and that. But in Republic's bid, that was the same price as the low volume.
And what age do you have to be to get the senior?
That's his most important.
Well, I mean,
I don't think
I'm
we
asking for a
put that.
Listen, we're all friends.
Yeah, I don't actually think we dictated that. I think it's internal to them because I think they already offer it, not for our residents, but they offer it. So I think I'm going to guess 65, but I don't know.
Could be
I'm
60,
not
could be
65
60,
yet, you
it could be 60.
I'm not 60.
I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Could be.
Jamie, if somebody chooses the low volume option, if we go with that, uh, how much trouble would it be to change to the regular volume or a
They
constituent?
just handle that through, yeah, they can, you know, if they arrange that setup with the hauler directly because we're not involved in any of the billing or anything like that. So when they call up, they'll call me and I put them in contact with the representative we have from the contract. And then they direct them and their account is just modified internally with the hauler to reflect low volume. If they were to call up and say they've changed their mind, they want to go back to normal, then they would have to make arrangements with the hauler to make that change in their account. And then if it requires the change in the size of the receptacle, they would have to arrange for a pickup and a delivery of a cart.
Okay, so it sounds like you're not locked into one or the other.
No, the only
options.
thing, you know, it's the board will have to decide whether or not they want to go to a once per week service. And I'm assuming that the reason why there's not a low volume is because it's already a lower volume.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's the decision they need to make.
Do both of the haulers have, 1 day a week when they pick up large items?
Yes, every bid that we received has the requirement of the once per month, or the bulk pickup and you get free bulk pickup once per month. And then anything in addition to the one free one, there's a charge.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, with the low volume, would that be still twice a week, just a low volume, the smaller trash can?
Yeah, so the way the low volume works is, it's just a smaller volume, but they're not collecting both days of the week. Like it's still, you still get twice a week. It's just a smaller trash can. Yeah. Mhm.
Any additional conversation or discussion? I just want to say that I think given the fact that there is low volume and a senior citizen discount, which kind of almost relates to the once per week collection, it would make sense to give our township residents the options that they would like choose from with Republic at twice per week collection from my vantage point, but I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
It pains me to agree with you, but.
Yeah, I would stick with the option to have twice a week, at that price that's quoted there.
Agreed.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for us to accept Republic Service three-year contract price. Do I have to read out the amount that's identified in the memo? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, we have our township manager going to update us about EAC and the single-use plastics.
So there is a memo in your packet. This is just a quick update that you all know that the Environmental Advisory Council has spent a year or more, Tessie, researching options for whether to ban single-use plastics, what are the impact on businesses and others, what kind of support is there. And they came up with a plan to take a small step first. Lower Gwinnett doesn't have that many retail operations. There's some small ones, but there's obviously three big ones. Well, Whole Foods does not use plastic bags. CVS, Giant, and Wawa do. So because they've learned a lot about the impact on restaurants and some other small businesses from plastic bag bans, the thought was to reach out to those three big ones, say, hey, Whole Foods has already done this. Would you to learn more from them, even if there's no initially, find out more about those issues and see what kind of difference that could make. So that's the next step.
Awesome. So they're embarking upon that with a timetable. I mean, I was on the call with Tessie where we kind of came up with that game plan. Is there an identified time frame where we could expect to hear back from them after they go through their next steps?
I don't think a deadline was set, and partly that was because the EAC did not meet this month because there was another event with the Audubon Society that was planned, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I will assume that they'll discuss it in the July, but it wasn't, I think, so this is going to be more of an educational campaign with an outreach to the businesses versus passing an ordinance limiting single-use plastic bags. And so I think the EAC will have to put together a plan on who's going to lead that effort. It wasn't discussed further at the last meeting.
We'll pay attention to the liaison reports just to see as it progresses and moves forward. And if anybody has questions, those will be the vehicles, I think, through which we could ask questions. Awesome. Next up, we have the consideration for a proposal for computer IT services. Included in our board packet is a memo from Office Manager Michelle. Thank you so much, Michelle, for pulling this together. In April, staff put out this RFP. We had both virtual and on-site interviews. There is a recommendation for Navitend. Their cost is slightly less than what we're currently paying with Conoco, are all covered. The rate that would be locked in for 3 years outlines current clients, private sector clients that they have in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, as well as municipal clients in New Jersey. We would be their first municipality in Pennsylvania. References were checked. The RFP is included. Any questions from the board?
None.
I just want to make sure staff is comfortable and feels that this would be adequate. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal from Naviten for computer IT services. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next
Madam
up-
Chair, can I make a suggestion that maybe we move up the discussion about the building at Ingersoll Park for Lower Gwinnett Little League?
Are we allowed to without making an amendment to the?
You can rearrange the order, not changing.
Would you say? I couldn't hear.
You can change the order, right, Neil? That's
Are we allowed to change the order? of the
Yeah, you're
agenda?
not adding.
not adding, just.
And I think it was mean spirited how they did that, but it wasn't me. I didn't, it wasn't me.
Actually, it's part of what I feel guilty because I didn't think about this.
Yeah.
Try to have a.
That's all you.
I don't set the order. Oh,
I do, Adam. I'm sorry. I try to make, when I know there's going to be people here and I just missed this one. So please, appease my guilty conscience and move this up.
Okay, so we are going to jump ahead to number 10 and we will come back to number 7. Before us, I think we have consideration for a quote from Gorski Engineering related to the cost for through Tips USA for design and construction of Ingersoll Park improvements to baseball fields and new concession stands. Included in the board packet is an outline of this agreement. Is there, you want to talk? through
Yeah,
it?
so about a month ago, we had a discussion about this project and the next phases. I get some comments back from the board. One of the comments was, how do we know that there's going to be adequate number of bathrooms there? And what we decided to do was talk to Gorski about the storage area that's on the opposite side of the building of the bathrooms, and having that plumbed out for a future bathroom in the event that you need some more capacity there in the future. And also in line with the time frame when the public works may not necessarily need to use the existing storage facility in the outfield. So that's captured in this proposal, along with a couple of other minor amendments that we kind of went over with Gorski after I had some more discussions with the Little League. So it's basically the same thing, plus the ability to convert that bathroom later.
Any questions from the board?
I just have one, just quick question. We're responsible for removing existing structures and utilities. Is that?
I had talked with Public Works about getting a jump start on this whole situation after the Little League is finished. I think the 16th of July, we'll give them a couple of days to get the existing refrigerator and other items out of the snack stand. And then Fred and Public Works are capable of demolishing the snack stand and getting that out. It is in Gorski's contract to remove the slab and the footings, which are the more difficult things to remove.
Is that our only obligation as far as the demolition or construction?
It was that and the batting cage that's there now
We'll
is
remove that
gonna
as
be
well.
removed, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything, permanent in the batting cages, like any concrete or pilings or, I know the structure comes down in the winter anyway. The netting comes down. Yeah. But, and then we'll have to remove all that. Okay, all right, thanks.
Any additional questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the quote from Gorski Engineering with the cost for Tips USA for design and construction of the Ingersoll Park improvements to the baseball field and new concession stand, press box, restroom, and associated site work at Ingersoll Field for the amount of $991,624. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much. No worries. You can leave. Enjoy your evening. Next up, we're gonna go back to number 7. Okay, resolution 2025-11. This is a resolution in support of SEPTA funding. Included in the board packet is the actual resolution. And there is a significant amount of whereases, but only one, and now there before. Be it resolved that Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors strongly encouraging regional and state officials to work together to address SEPTA's immediate funding crisis and to establish permanent, dedicated, and sustainable funding sufficient to ensure service for the entire SEPTA network, providing a convenient, safe, and reliable system for all riders. Resolved and enacted. Is there any questions or concerns about this resolution?
Where are we going to send this? Are we sending this to Harrisburg?
I think ideally we would send it to our state and regional officials, which would be our county commissioners, our state representative, our state senator.
Okay, good.
The Partnership TMA is another organization that we're a part of, and they're part of the advocacy groups that are advocating for SEPTA funds.
Good, good. The more pressure we can put on the legislature, the better.
Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-11. Is it 11? Yes, in support funding for SEPTA. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, this is the consideration of the authorization to submit an RL grant application in the amount of $291,345 for the traffic signal upgrades at Bethlehem Pike and Tennis Avenue. Included in our board packet is an explanation from Bowman. Chad, do you want to say anything?
Sure, just to be brief, this is, the request is for work at the intersection based off of a combination of the township-wide assessment that was done 4 or 5 years ago of all the traffic signals in the township, and also things that have come up the last 2 years from annual inspections from your traffic signal maintenance contractors. So we've identified and recommended to staff that this be the next priority for the township in terms of applying to PennDOT and their signal grant programs to do upgrades at the intersection.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the submission of the RL grant application in the amount of $291,345 for traffic signal upgrades to Bethlehem Pike and Tennis Avenue. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the consideration of the accepted work order proposal from Bowman Consulting Group to prepare construction and bid documents for the replacement of the traffic signal at Bethlehem Pike and Penland Pike. Included in the board packet is the work order. Are there any questions from the board? And I think our traffic engineers here answer any of those questions you may have. Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to consider the acceptance of that work order proposal from Bowman Consultant Group to prepare for construction and bid documents for the replacement of the traffic signal at Bethlehem Pike and Penland Pike. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the consideration for a donation request from Wissahickon Valley Historic Society. I think included in our board packet is an outlining of that donation request letter. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary. They're asking for a commemorative donation in the amount of $1,000 for Lower Gwinnett Township. Any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to make a donation in the amount of $1,000 to the Wissahickon Valley Historic Society as they celebrate their 50th anniversary on behalf of Lower Gwinnett Township. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Consideration for the issuance of a bond council RFP included in our board packet is a memo from our township manager. In keeping with the guidance of Resolution 2023-20, they will begin a request for proposals, soliciting proposals from law firms to serve as bond counsel. Anticipate potentially issuing tax-exempt municipal bonds later this year to finance the planned new public works facility. Are there any questions or concerns related to that RFP? No? Are you just advising that this will be on the website and advertisement will be placed in the Montgomery County Law Reporter? Yeah, I think it's I should put the motion on here. Okay. That's where it's going to be afterwards. I'd like to make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I'd like to make a motion to authorize the issuance of the RFP for our bond council. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the consideration to approve repayment terms in the letter agreement included a subject to parties signing a formal agreement satisfactory to the township manager, finance director, and solicitor related to the Pearson pension. Is there any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Now I'd like to make that motion to approve the repayment terms in the letter agreement subject to private signing, party signing, a formal agreement that is satisfactory to the township manager, finance director, and solicitor. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Included in our board packet is a finance report for May 2025. Any questions for our finance director?
Just really quick. Any issues that we should be concerned about or we're on path?
Right now, and in July, I'll be going over the 6 months. I'll be giving you more of a breakdown of real estate budget wise and everything, but that's a breakdown.
Revenue, expenses, where we need to be. Yeah, I know we're about halfway, so I figured out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melinda. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Questions from the public? Seeing none, included in our board packet is our township engineer's report for June 2025. Any questions for the township engineer? Thank you to the township engineer. Included in the board packet is our traffic engineer report for June 2025. Are there any questions regarding the traffic engineer report from the board? Seeing none, thank you to the traffic engineer. Included in our packet is invoice report for June 24th, 2025. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoice report for June 24th, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Included in the board packet is the minutes from our May 27th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions or concerns from the board?
No.
Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the May 27th, 2025 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Supervisor liaison reports are included in the board packet. Please read them at your leisure. Staff updates.
Just two really quick ones. We're going to start the work on Township Line Road as a result of the Penland Pike meeting, putting stone down to help drainage there. And they started back here on Bethlehem Pike for the Bethlehem Pike Bridge replacement. So the work's underway.
Thank you so much, Fred. Any additional comments from staff? Or staff updates? Seeing none, supervisor comments. Tessie?
I'd just like to thank again, like I do always, appreciate the work that our staff and uniformed officers and so forth give to the township. I really appreciate all of your work and staying long hours, and it really propels us forward. Tonight is a great example of how much work we're accomplishing. So thank you very much. That's all.
Jimmy?
Ditto.
Persky?
Ditto.
I just like to thank, again, with the heat and all that we're encountering, I want to make sure that everybody's staying safe, staying cool, staying hydrated, reaching out if you need any assistance. Thanking our public works staff for all of the work that they've done for the storm cleanup. It's very visible, as well as our police and fire and everyone that was involved in ensuring that, you know, the roads were clear, trees that were down were removed safely, and communicating with the public at large. Just want everyone to stay safe. Come out to our concert in the park tomorrow, the 25th. We'll see you in July. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.